Welcome to Newsline in Depth. I'm Shibayaki in Tokyo. China's biggest political happening of the year, the National People's Congress, is now underway. The government has set this year's GDP growth target at around 5%, but behind the tightly choreographed event is a growing sense of crisis among the leadership of President Xi Jinping. They're worried the worsening employment situation because of the country's slowing economy could heighten criticism of the Communist Party.
Guangzhou is the largest city in Guangdong province and a major economic hub in southern China. Migrant workers at this facility are introduced to local plants, including clothing factories that are looking for workers. More than 10,000 people gather here each day. But with fewer jobs on offer and lower wages being paid, many people were unable to find work that matches their skills.
I never had trouble finding work in the past. Every time I came here, I was hired. But now it's difficult finding a job.
It's really hard to earn a living now. I used to make more than $1.40 for each coat I produced. But now, I only get 83 cents, which is impossible to live on.
With China's economy slowing and people growing more frustrated, concerns have been rising about social unrest. These worries seem to have come to a head in November, when the country witnessed a spate of random attacks on civilians. In Zhuhai City in Guangdong province, a driver rammed his vehicle into a crowd, killing 35 people. Days later, 8 people died when a 21-year-old man went on a stabbing spree in a school in Jiangsu province. This was followed by an attack in Hunan province, when a 39-year-old man drove his vehicle into a group of people outside a school, injuring dozens. The growing economic difficulties have led to a sense of stagnation in society. When the lucky few do find jobs, they quickly head off to work. But the number of jobs being offered has dropped, and by 8 a.m. on this day, there were still many unemployed migrant workers standing around. We spoke with one man from Shandong province.
I arrived at 5 a.m. to look for work, but more people showed up than there were job openings. There were maybe 1,000 people, but only 10 jobs.
He says he visited a temporary staffing agency and a store that was hiring, but no luck. He often sleeps in cheap internet cafes so that he still has some money to send home to his family.
My kid is attending university. I can't afford the tuition with what I'm currently making. The situation is getting worse by the day, and I feel hopeless.
People are increasingly expressing dissatisfaction with the government. This is a municipal organization that mediates labor disputes. Every day, men and women walk in looking for help. This woman is here to seek arbitration for unpaid wages. She spoke to us on condition of anonymity. She's in charge of human resources at an IT firm in Beijing. But she says she hasn't been paid since last September and is no longer able to get in contact with her manager. She filed a lawsuit, but was told it will take 5 months before arbitration begins. She's angry that people like her in vulnerable positions are being left behind.
There are many company employees like me who are struggling to get paid. It's too late for me to start arbitration. I feel helpless. Why aren't the courts and government protecting us?
那你保护谁呢?
For more, let's turn to our Beijing correspondent, Nakamura Genta. So, Genta, the sense of stagnation in Chinese society, what do you think is behind it?
One clue might lie in an expression that gained traction on Chinese social media last year, garbage time of history. It's a play on a sporting term referring to the final minutes of a game when the outcome is already decided. Many in China now use this phrase to describe their own situation. The social security system in China differs widely between urban and rural areas. Even college entrance exams are based on household registration, favoring students from major cities. The economic downturn has placed an even greater strain on low-income groups and people from rural backgrounds. For some, this has led to a sense of hopelessness, a feeling that no matter how hard they try, they won't get ahead. That despair seems to be pushing some to the brink, resulting in extreme acts of violence. The Zhuhai attack that left more than 30 people dead appears to have stemmed from personal motives. But when incidents like this occur on such a regular basis, it's important to consider the broader social factors at play.
These incidents really did send shockwaves throughout the region. Thanks, Genta. We'll get back to you later. Now, the sluggish Chinese economy is fueling concerns over employment. This is especially true for young people who face fierce competition and anxiety over not being able to land a job.
Han Xuan has a degree from a prestigious university in Dalian and is fluent in both English and Japanese. To advance her career, she took a position with a major U.S. telecommunications company. But she was suddenly told in February she'll be dismissed.
I suddenly lost my job and I really panicked. It would wake me up at night.
The reason? Her company's significant downsizing in China due to the slow economy. A third of about 30 regular employees in Han's department were also fired.
For the younger generation, there is definitely enormous pressure to find jobs. I am worried that I may not be as young or competitive compared to university students.
This job fair is held every weekend in Beijing. This time, some 50 companies are participating. But for job seekers, it's tough going.
Now it's a buyer's market. It is difficult to find a job that suits me.
Over 12 million people are expected to graduate from universities this year, a record number. But graduates struggle to find careers that correspond with their degrees.
I want a good job related to my expertise, but many companies are floundering or have gone bankrupt, so I have no choice if there are no other options.
Against this background, people are rushing to clinch stable jobs within the system, namely the public servant sector. A cram school for public service exams holds intensive courses where students hole up in hotels before exam day. Questions center on President Xi Jinping policies and sayings, as well as the content of important meetings of the Communist Party.
Questions about the Central Economic Work Conference will surely be included in this year's exam.
Getting into the system is incredibly competitive, so these cram schools keep opening up. This year, 3.4 million people applied for national public servant roles. That's a 2.5-fold increase in 5 years. This master's graduate had hoped to find work in real estate. But since the industry is in crisis, he has abandoned his dream in pursuit of a stable income.
Public servants have a certain social status. I think it is a relatively good choice for me. What I care about is that I have a decent life and reasonable income.
能有一些自己的个人时间，我觉得就可以了。
Young graduates and people new to the workforce face corporate restructuring and other challenges. Putting aspirations aside, they look to the future with a higher degree of uncertainty.
Now let's go back to Beijing. Genta, how is the government handling the situation?
Since the primary issue is economic stagnation, the government is focusing on fiscal policies in a bid to boost growth. On the opening day of the National People's Congress, Premier Li Qiang announced that this year's growth target would remain at 5%, the same as last year. But whether this is achievable remains uncertain. In the same week, President Donald Trump announced 20% additional tariffs on Chinese imports. With exports playing a key role in last year's economic growth, China may find it difficult to rely on them this year. At the same time, the country's social welfare system is under pressure. The pension system relies heavily on state subsidies. With a shrinking workforce, experts warn that pension reserves could eventually be depleted. Today, China lacks the financial leeway to support the most vulnerable, and the social safety nets are proving inadequate. Premier Li also stressed the importance of ensuring that China's people live and work in peace and contentment. This suggests that the government is placing a strong emphasis on maintaining social stability. Meanwhile, Hong Kong media report that in the wake of the Zhuhai incident, residential groups across Guangdong province have been instructed to report individuals deemed high risk. They include people who have lost their jobs or suffered investment failures. But can ramped-up surveillance truly prevent future incidents if the root causes of social discontent remain unaddressed? Eliminating the risk entirely will be a difficult task.
Thank you for your insight, Genta. NHK World's correspondent Nakamura Genta in Beijing. And that's all for this edition of Newsline in Depth. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.